Hey everybody, it's DigiBro, and I'm going to show you how to make one of these anime composer spotlight videos. I made this one on Taku Iwasaki. People seem to really like it. A lot of people were praising the editing, especially the audio editing, and I did all of the audio myself before handing it off to Devu. Like, I did all the music and all that shit before, and he did all the visuals. So I'm going to show you how I did the music for that, because I really think this is probably the best way to do a video about a soundtrack composer, and it's just a really convenient way of being able to weave music and dialogue together. I've said before that I have a real problem with the way that music is used in analysis videos, because I think that it becomes grating when you're trying to listen to someone talk over music, especially if it's like, if the music's too loud in the mix or anything like that. I've just always had a real problem with the way that it comes out. To me, I want to just be able to hear what the person is saying. But in a video like this, where there's not as much to say as there is to hear, I think it works better if we can, listen to lots of music and have the vocal snippets instead be cut down and make them very short so that they aren't intruding on the music too much. Anyways, I'm going to do my next one on Tsuneo Imahori, the guy who is best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun and Hajime no Ippo and Gungrave here. But he also is a session guitarist who's performed on like practically everything that Yoko Kanno has ever done, in or out of anime. And he's also been in a couple other soundtracks, like Gurren Lagann as a guitarist. So I've got basically every anime song he's ever been involved with. I spend all day hunting down. This was really the hardest part of this video. Like, the hardest part of this was just going to be tracking down all of his music. And the second hardest part is going to be picking which songs to use, because I have way too much music. A lot of these shows I only really want to mention in passing. So, like, I have to like choose one 10-second to 30-second clip from like the entire track listing of certain shows, like every song that he was on that show. So it's going to be difficult to make song choices, but I think what you guys are mostly going to want to see is the actual process of how to create this. So what I did before on the previous video was I edited everything in FL Studio. FL Studio is a very confusing and hard to work with program that, for the purposes I was using it for, while it's really good for the audio mixing in terms of like mixing my vocals above the music, I actually think that the actual cutting together of clips is more difficult in this program than it would be in Vegas. So I'm going to try using Sony Vegas this time. That's another project open. And we're going to see if this is actually easier. So I'm just going to take you through the process of how I went about making this previous video and how I'm going to make this one. So the first track we're going to use is definitely going to be the Trigun opening, because it's iconic. Everyone knows it who knows Trigun. And the main point we're going to be making in this video is that Tsuneo Imahori is a guitarist. He performs the guitar on lots of soundtracks, including the ones that he made himself. He is definitely the guitarist on the OP of Trigun. So I'm going to create a video track here just so I can click around on it. Yeah, so we're just going to be cutting together this song, and I'm going to be trying to create a space where I can do narration in this song. There is no script for this video yet. All we've got is here's a live action clip of Tsuneo Imahori. This is the guy we're going to be making a video about. As you can see in here, he's a badass, and I've got some links to some interviews with him. But there's no script for this yet, because I'm writing the script around the video, around the length of the clips I want to use. And apologies for the fact that the audio is not going to be coming through clean. It's going to be coming through my speakers into my microphone, because I'm trying to avoid copyright problems. So So we're probably going to have me start talking around here. And then I know I'm going to cut out. Well, right there. So we're just going to make this clip much quieter and cross-pollinate this shit so that it fades into each other. Oops, I dragged it instead of... And we'll see how that sounds. It's a little too sudden and violent. Let's make it happen a little later. There we go. I want it to be that feeling of like jolting back awake, you know. Now these are a little loud, so I'm just gonna turn down even the basic mix of this because it's like peaking just in the natural audio quality. So yeah, the idea here is we're picking, you know, there's two bars. I don't know how else to describe. I don't know my music terms that well, but we're using 2 bars and then another 2 bars, and those 2 are the quieter ones, and that's where I'm going to be speaking, and then the music will pick back up all dramatically and swell over here. Now, so when I edited the previous one, like doing this, what I just did with the audio manipulation, this would be incredibly a pain in the ass in FL Studio, and it was taking me forever. So that's why we did it in here in like 5 fucking seconds. The only problem is that I'm going to be, you know, doing the voiceover, and then I'm going to recheck it between this and FL Studio. But let's just see how this sounds. I think we're going to have it fade for a little longer. Yeah, it feels more natural. Alright, now, so I know that what I'm going to say in this span is going to be that he's like the most badass guitarist. So as cool as this is, I'd rather have this other part that's later in the song. Right here. Let's see if we can take it out and put it there. See if it'll work. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's fine as it is. And then we'll probably end up doing more dialogue right here. So we'll just go ahead and let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't need to be that quiet. Oh my god, I could listen to that fucking song all day. Alright, so now we're gonna have to start writing. We've got a gap that's fairly long, all things considered. I'm probably going to talk really slowly in the narration, which is what I did in the last video to make it sort of stretch out to match the length of a track. So let's go ahead, and this might be boring to listen to, but I'm just going to be writing this section. All right, I'll just play this. I'll just play this in the background while I write this. Okay, I already kind of knew what I wanted to say for this part, but just trying to phrase it in a way that will take up enough space. Now, listening to this in the background, I feel like I made this get too quiet. Don't want to lose the energy, you know? Yeah, that's a little better. Where did I have this at? 8.8. Damn it. It's so hard to make it just the right number you want. Anyways, yeah, so let's test this out. Let's just like read it to ourselves. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. So that was about right. I'll probably say it a little faster in this recording. Alright. This is Tsuneo Imahori. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that... But more importantly, what needs to be known about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. I changed it up a little. Oops. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know... But more importantly, what needs to be known about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Okay. Now, as you can tell, I got pretty close to the mic and was pretty loud in there. But, and I was very close to peaking. I was almost too loud. But, we're going to go ahead and use compressor, which is going to make the highs a little lower, the lows a little higher, and make the whole thing sound thicker. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. That's what's going to help it to stand out over the music in the background. Now, this might be enough on its own, because when I was doing the previous video, there were some songs that I had to do more with, like over the Gatchaman song, I had to do a lot with my voice to make it loud enough to really stand out. But over some of the quieter songs, all I had to do was use the compressor, and it was enough to make my voice loud enough to stand out. But we're going to see how it goes right here and now. Now, I might have gone a little long with my speech, but we'll find out. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what needs to be known about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Well, it's definitely too quiet, but best known as... Let's see if we can trim a little bit of fat off of this to make it timed better. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what needs to be known about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Anime industry. Sounds like the anime industry. Anime industry. I don't like how I kind of hit the mic there at the end. I think I'm just going to read it a little faster and try to time it even better. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what should be known about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. I didn't like that delivery. But more importantly, what should be known about Imahori is... But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the great... But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Wanted to put more emphasis on guitar in there. Alright, let's see. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more skip ahead to probably here. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Don't actually know if this was any shorter than the previous one, but let's... This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. Yeah, that sounds better. Compress it again. We're going to replace the previous... Oh, I must have spelled it wrong, because it didn't ask me to replace the other one. Oh, I had a space, that's why. I had a space the first time. Okay, this looks like it'll be... This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. There we go. Come on! Yeah, alright. So, this is obviously too quiet, but we're going to test out... Like, I don't know if I want to make the track quieter or if I want to make my voice louder. So, we're just going to mute that track and render this shit as a WAV to my desktop. And then we'll do the same for the vocals only. Yep. Okay, now we're going to open up FL Studio and get some more advanced shit. So we're going to take our Imahori sounds and then also our Imahori Vox, which apparently has all this space left. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, yeah, it might just be that the music's a little too loud, but we'll see if adding the sound goodizer evens it all out. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. That's a little... This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gun... This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun... This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. I kind of like how B sounds like more degraded, like the song itself. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the... Yeah, it's a little too mixed in, though. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. The song is just so fucking chaotic that it really makes it like it's strenuous to listen to all this at once, but keep testing it. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori... Even more clean. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. This is Tsuneo Imahori, best known as the soundtrack composer for Trigun, Hajime no Ippo, and Gungrave. But more importantly, what you should know about Imahori is that he's probably the single greatest guitar player in the anime industry. On the one hand, I do think it's a bit much, but on the other hand, I like the idea that this, like, it sounds like the guitar just, like, overpowers me at the end, like it's trying to fucking fight me out of the song, which I kind of like, though it's, I don't know if people will be receptive to it, The things that I like out of my music are not necessarily the things that other people like out of their music, but I do think that we're going to tone down the second part here even more, because I'm probably going to talk for a little while over this. So, yeah, that's a bit more chilled out. In fact, maybe even more than that. So we're probably just going to fade this out at the end of whatever I say there. So, yeah. So I guess we'll be going back and forth between this and the Vegas file. So, alright. I have to think about what I'm going to say about him. I'm going to be filming this in chunks because I just really wanted to get that first bit done and just to test this out. And, so, yeah, I'll see you in the next part.